Do it.
All right, I think we're recording. This is Denise Meadows. I introduced Denise to the Coimbra Protocol in 2017, I believe. She always claims that I challenged her. I don't remember that, but I believe her. Um, it's been wonderful to see her recovery, and we've talked this morning some about things that she went through and things that I'd never heard. And it was just amazing. I mean, Dr. DeMoss said the other day, if he had not seen with his own eyes and written with his own hand the notes, that some of the miracles that he's seen, he would not believe, even if it's his best friend telling him. And that's difficult. I mean, I've seen them, and Denise is one of them. And you've seen them and you hear about them, but we've just got to keep putting these out there to make people realize that this isn't some dream or some, this is a numbers thing. You'll find that when we're dealing with this, that, maybe something works and people will think, it's only 5 or 10% of the people that get better. And with this, we've seen a lot of people get better. And when you're diagnosed with MS, you're never given any hope. I was given none. I mean, you hoped yourself in the medicine or the doctors or, the diet to get better. And when you start doing that and you don't get better and you see yourself getting worse and you're getting worse, you're just looking for some hope. And so the point of interviewing people, and if you have anybody, please tell me about, is so that if you're in the range of my voice right now, I want you to realize there is hope. When I started, there was none. And I researched and researched and researched some more. And I'm like, man, this looks real. I want it to be real, but you didn't want to get your hopes up because you didn't want them crushed. And so anyway, I go in circles here. We've had a wonderful time talking this morning. We're going to talk about her recovery. I'll probably interject a little bit about mine also. We both have the gift of gab. I don't know how long this is going to go.
What are you talking about?
A very long time, but Denise, without any further ado, as they say, I don't know if that's correct English or not. Why don't you share with us a little bit about when you were diagnosed, your symptoms, and then what you did and your recovery?
Okay, great. Okay, so I was December of 2016. I actually, on my birthday, woke up and couldn't see, which was, what I called my first symptom at the time. But later on, I found out it wasn't my first symptom. But it was my wake up symptom. We'll call it that, because there wasn't much I could do. If you wake up and you're blind, that's going to wake you up.
Blind in both eyes or just one eye?
Completely in the right and in the left. I could see, it was like my eye was cut in half and I couldn't look down. I could look up, and that's all I had. And
I totally freak out.
No, it was unreal. I'm like, okay. So at first, you're like, did I hit my head? Because, I'd worked the previous day and did something, was I in a car wreck? It was crazy. So
had I been drinking?
Right, exactly. And so kind of just, close your eyes and open them again and be like, okay, let's start this day over with, because this isn't going well. Right. Nothing was working, and it was my birthday, which, yay, I'm really good at. It was my 40th birthday. So it was December 19th. We had a Christmas party at my dad's to go to, and our plan was to go get stuff from the store, go home and make it. And so that turned into, let's go to the eye doctor and what this is. And we were at the eye doctor for 4 hours, and he's sending every x-ray possible to St. Louis because he had no clue what was going on. He wasn't seeing anything. And after 4 hours of sitting there, he comes in and he shuts the door and he says, I think you have MS. And I'm like, but my legs, seem to be working fine. So I didn't put the connection there. I just, like you've said before, I don't know what MS is, but I know I don't want it.
Right.
And that's where I was.
And typically, let me interject this, that a lot of people's first symptom is sight, because your ulnar nerve, or your optic nerve, is a very large nerve, and the MS has affected that nerve in
Yes.
some way. So for myself, that was also my same first symptom, is my eyes. I had double vision. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that, that was December. So for Christmas, what I got to do was have IV steroids and, hope to God it came back. It took till March to come back, which you want to talk about a long winter. You can't drive, you can't do anything, it was terrible. Within that time, I found a neurologist, because I live out in the middle of nowhere. We have a neurologist that comes to our local hospital like once every 3 months or something, and that wasn't an option for me. I couldn't even get into him. So I finally found a neurologist in St. Louis. So that's where we ended up. And first thing first, he's like, hey, we got to start these drugs. We've got to start these drugs. We did the MRI and found that I had a ton of lesions on my spine, on my brain. And he could tell by the lesions that some of them were older, some of them were newer. And, this is something you've had all your life. And I'm like, well, okay, it's so much to take. And just unreal. You're just in a state of shock and you don't know what to do. So you just do what they say. It's just like, here's the drugs. These are going to work for you. We're going to stop this. And so I started taking the drugs and didn't stop anything. If anything, I feel like it got worse. One day I could feel my legs, one day I could see, one day I couldn't. The heat intolerance was huge, a huge, huge thing to me. We live on a little hobby farm, and I remember the guy was bringing hay, and my husband and the guy that brings the hay were like all coats and overalls and bibs and just freezing. I'm out there in shorts and a tank top and couldn't feel anything. My husband's like, you need to go inside. I'm feeling fine. There was I couldn't handle heat at all though. I would just literally melt. I couldn't walk outside on my steps. I couldn't do anything. We bought a fancy cooling vest, spent hundreds of dollars on that with little ice packs. And I couldn't even go out and feed the dog with the ice packs on me. I mean, it was unreal. I just melted. So couldn't mow the yard on a riding mower. There was no way. I melted. I lost my sight. I mean, everything came back just instantly when I was in the heat. I couldn't take a shower. I mean, it's just unreal the things people didn't know I couldn't do. I could not get in the shower. I mean, it would just melt me. I would have to take like a 4-hour nap if I took a shower. So it was like planning a shower was so overwhelming to me. And it's just, I was unreal. It just unreal how everything happened. I feel like so quickly, but
You know what that reminds me of? When you said the shower was overwhelming, I can remember sitting in my recliner in my room, and I'd have to go to the bathroom.
oh
And
yeah,
I'd sit there and think, you know what? To go to the bathroom right now is the same as if you'd say to me, let's run a marathon.
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
honestly, now I
Absolutely.
never did this, but I've said this before. People will recall this, is that I would rather go to the bathroom on myself than to walk to the bathroom.
That
And
is so
that was
true.
because it was so overwhelming just to think of
Yes.
it. So
And to even say it now, it feels like it was like a nightmare, but I I was almost embarrassed by it, but it's nothing, these videos have to get out there because people have to know that there's a way to come back from all this,
Yes.
and there's so many people that I'm on every MS site that they'll let me on. A lot of them are
Right.
medication sites. I get
Right.
blocked a lot because I talk a lot.
They'll kick you off. I've been
I get
kicked off
kicked off a
several.
lot.
Yeah.
They probably, Denise Meadows,
Yeah.
but I see so many people that are just like me, and I'm like, no, don't do what they say. There's a way out, and
Yeah.
it's just heartbreaking. And then I get aggravated because I'll say something, and then
Yeah.
the administrator will get on there, and I'll be like, but it's
Yeah.
so weird to me that people can say, hey, have you tried this drug? No, I haven't. Well, that's okay. You can say that for these drugs that kill people.
Right.
But
It may kill you, but have you tried it?
yeah, Quiver Protocol hasn't killed anybody. And I get on there and instantly it's Denise. We don't accept that. Bye. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. But
Here's
I
the thing that
reach some
cracks me
people.
up is that you'll tell people and they're like, how much water you got to drink a day? And you're like,
Right.
2.5 liters. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, you can.
let me see. You have an incurable disease. You got to drink a little bit of water. Now it's a lot of water, but you got to get used to drinking water or you're going to get worse.
Yes.
That's like the doctor. I told him, I want to take all this vitamin D. You can't do that. You'll get kidney stones. Let me
Yeah.
see. I can have an incurable disease or kidney stones. Tell you
Right.
what, give me the kidney stones
Yeah.
because I can
Right.
recover from kidney stones and incurable disease. I cannot recover from. And
Right.
you were talking about the medicine. The medicine, you hope that it'll make you better. And some
Right.
people it does.
Yeah.
But the
And
side effects can be worse than medicine.
unreal.
You can
Absolutely
die.
unreal. And I said me being blind was my wake up. But I went blind 7, 8 years before that and went to the eye doctor, and he misdiagnosed me as an optical migraine. And it came back, a few days later. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't an optical migraine. After giving birth to my last child, I couldn't walk for 2 days after. And they said, oh, it's probably just, the epidural, whatever. I mean, all these things just added up. Like I felt like how people talk about when you turn 40, the aches, the pains, the constant being in pain. I could tell the weather before the weather changed. And I thought that was normal. That's not normal, people. That is not normal. I can't tell the weather until I get on my app and look at it now. And I mean, I could have told you when it was going to snow 2 days from now or rain and I have so many friends that ache and, whether they have MS or whether they have fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis or any of these things, they're saying, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow. I'm going to be in so much pain. And I remember that. I can't tell you how many days, I'm like, well, it's rainy. I'm just not going to be able to do anything. And there's just, I tell you what, I wish I had this body when I was a teenager because I just have, so much more energy. I can't tell you the weather. I have to go outside and be like, oh, it's cold. Uh, Nothing, I don't have the aches. I don't have the pains. My body's constantly wanting to move. It's a miracle. It's an absolute
I
miracle.
I've said this ever since our last interview that truthfully I think now maybe this is just me, but honestly I feel better than I felt 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when my feet hit the floor, now I'm able to walk right now.
Mhm.
But when my feet still hit the floor, I say the same thing my father taught me to say. And that was, God, who do you want me to help today? And
Yeah.
I get on the phone and start talking. My
Yeah.
wife comes downstairs. I've slept less than her. I sleep 6 hours a night. I
Yep.
feel great. I told the neurologist assistant to please give him this message. Tell him I feel wonderful and
Yeah.
better than I've felt in 20 years. And I tell him that all the time. Why? because he doesn't have a single, I guarantee you, he doesn't have a single MS patient come to him constantly saying, thank you, and I feel wonderful.
Yeah.
I do. I feel wonderful. Go
Hmm.
ahead.
Yeah, that's that's the whole shocking thing about it was, when I got diagnosed, they were like, this is, a bad case. And, you talk about hope, and there was none. I mean, I worked a very physical job. I was, taken off of that job. There was no hope of me going back. Um, I I really got depressed. I took my uniforms that I wore to work. I put them, we have a spare bedroom downstairs. I put them all in a hamper and I put them in that room and I shut that door, and that door never opened. I couldn't open that door. I was so upset and so almost aggravated with myself that I wasn't like getting over this, and
Did you
it's,
cry?
oh gosh, once or twice. Yeah, once or twice,
Oh
like
man.
every second. That's all I did. I mean, I
You
could have
made fun
shot
of me the last interview because I started to cry, so I got to make fun of you now.
Yes, yeah, that's all you have time to do. And
Yeah.
there is no hope. I mean, and we talked this morning, getting ready for this, and how you said, and you talked to my husband, which, um, both of you had these excellent points that you go to a neurologist, and this happened to me. Here's all the meds that we have. Pick one. And it's like, what? Don't you pick it for me? And that's exactly what we got. And then so I researched because I had to. I mean, the neurologist,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
the best thing maybe he did, was he just said, here, figure this out. So, and
Yeah. I
I don't
went to
know.
school for 8 years, but here you go
Yeah,
figure
figure
out
this
the
out. What do you
medicine.
want to do?
Well, what you find out is there's no silver bullet. They
No.
all do basically the same thing. So up to that point, which was give you a 30% uh, hope, 30% of, um, it worked for 30% of the people. For 70% of the people, it didn't work for.
Right.
But 30% of the people it worked for. That was the medicine that they had for them. Now, maybe now there's been some improvement to where it's 50%. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when I went to the doctor, I'll say this. I was with an intern and I said, how effective is that medicine you want to put me on? Is it 30%? And he shook his head and he said, yeah, that's what we tell people.
Yeah. That's unreal.
I
And
said, let me ask you a question. If you were to get on the airplane and you walked up to the cockpit and you asked the pilot, what is the percentages that this plane is going to land safely? And he said, 30%.
yeah, not bad.
Would you get on the airplane? And he said, yes, if that was my only option, then I would get on the airplane. And I said, later, I said to a friend, remind me never to fly with that guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
But the sad thing is that's what I had. And that is what you do, because that's what they give you. That's all they know to do is give you these drugs. And yeah, you've got a 30% chance, not that you're going to heal, not that you're going to get better, that it's going to stop progression. So you could stay where you're at, which where I was at wasn't working. I mean, it wasn't. But that's, if this is as bad as I get, there's days that I don't go blind, you know, but 9 times out of 10, I'm going to lose my eyesight because it was off and on constantly. It came back, but it left just as quick. And there was no rhyme or reason to it. There's just, I'd wake up, oh, can't see today. Okay, I'm going to sit here on the couch. And like my husband said, there's a lot of days he went to work and he'd come back and I'd be sitting in the same spot, where he left me. I'd have these awful, awful headaches where I said there's like something eating my brain. That's what it felt like, just something that's in there eating. And I couldn't sleep.
they'll tell you your brain can't feel. You don't
Right.
have
I
feeling.
disagree. I
Well,
disagree.
maybe, I don't know where the nerves are. Okay.
Yeah.
But I know that I used to scratch my head until my fingertips would come black finally. And I'd
Yeah.
look at them and they'd be covered in blood.
Yeah.
I would scratch my head so much it would bleed. because it just itched. And so
Yeah.
maybe that's the nerves around the brain or something. I don't know. But don't tell me you don't feel anything in your head, because that could happen. Here's one other thing I want to say while we're on the subject. You were talking about your husband. When you get MS, your mate gets MS too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
get it in a different way than you. They
Mm-hmm.
become a caregiver. They
Yep.
become a provider.
Yeah.
They become mom and dad, or dad and mom. I mean,
Yeah.
their roles totally change. And
Mm-hmm.
when they were at the altar, me and my wife always say this. When we was at the altar, they didn't tell us this. And you say in sickness and in health. Now you say that at the altar, but then, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, that gets put to the test.
Yeah.
And MS can break up marriages, because we understand it is a lot of stress.
Oh, it's terrible. Absolutely awful.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've been there, done that. And, I talked in the other video on the protocol site about, when, and you asked Kenneth's, point of view on it today. And I'd never heard his point of view of, he cried when I said I was done with the infusions on the way home.
He claims he did.
Yeah, we'll say that, but okay. And, but we went to the neurologist, and I was on the pills, and then we tried the infusions, and I had in my head, because I researched, because that's all I had to do. Plus, the doctor couldn't tell me this drug's better than this drug, and this is why I picked this for you. He basically said, you pick. So I was on every MS site, and I had seen people that took these infusions and they had energy. And I'm like, that's something I miss. I want some energy. So I picked this infusion, and lo and behold, it wasn't doing it for me. It was making me worse. I was in the emergency room all the time with urinary tract infections. I just felt so awful. My friend actually died from these very same infusions. And, and this time
she just got a cold, you said.
Had a cold, a stinking cold. I talked to her 2 days before her death. She was fine. And her husband came home from work and had a cold. And she actually made a comment that, he's crying like he's dying. And she actually passed away 2 days later from a cold, because her immune system was so gone. And I told my husband, and I said, you know what? I'm right behind her. I am right there. I can't fight anything off. I'm constantly sick. I'm constantly.
I got a cold while I was on the medicine.
Yeah.
It was the worst cold I've ever had in my life, because my body had nothing left to fight the cold with. And I actually, during that time, called my sister-in-law, and I said, I want to die. I said, I'm not suicidal. I don't want you to think I want to kill myself for the sake of killing myself, or because life's too much. I said, but right now I'm suffering so badly. And I feel so terrible. I really just want to stop my suffering. And that's the way I felt.
So I reached out because these infusions were not working, and I thought maybe I'm doing something wrong, because I see people that do have energy. They're not getting better, but they have little bits of energy. And so I reached out and I said, listen, I'm eating vegetables only. I'm doing all the right things. This isn't working. And lo and behold, you had to have commented on that, because our first message, I looked back, was November 17th, 2017. And you left me a message. I listened to it this morning, actually. And it was basically, hey, nice to meet you. I agree that a diet can help, but I don't think you're going to get there. Have you heard of this protocol? That's your message. If you look back, you ought to listen to it. It's pretty funny.
I don't have it, but I'd love to hear it. You'll have to send it to me.
You don't have it? I'm gonna send it to you. I had to go way, way, way back, because we talk a lot. And
that's a little bit younger then.
Yeah.
Thank God for my boyish,
me too.
For my boyish good looks. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that's your message, and this protocol, is what you should be doing. And my response was, yeah, I've heard about it. Seems a little too good to be true. That's where the argument started. And you're constantly sending me these testimonials and I'm just kind of brushing you off. And it just kind of, it's so funny because
Just
I mean,
let
I
me
was
interject
wanting,
this. Normally, what we find out, or what I've heard, now whether or not this is true, it may take 6 months or more for
uh-huh,
people to come around. Like, you'll introduce them to
yeah,
people and you'll think, well, this person's open, they're neat and natural. And then you
yeah,
start talking to them about it and they're kind of like, yeah, all right, I'll research it. And you're like, no, you want to yell. But some people are
yeah,
very skeptical and
yep,
they have to research it. And to be honest, people, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. They're going to have to get worse. And
yes, yeah. I felt like I was totally out of options, and that was November that you talked to me. Um, I started the protocol March 2018. So there was a lot of communication between us. I'd had that hysterectomy. I had a hysterectomy because any temperature change, my body just couldn't handle it. So it's actually my neurologist that said, you need to have a hysterectomy. So that's what we did. And when I woke up, my doctor actually told me there's a doctor here in the hospital that used to have MS. And that made me mad because people don't used to have MS. It's not something you wake up and you're over it. And it's like, oh, look, I'm over the MS. So I kind of questioned him and he said he went to South America. He flew down to South America. And I was like, well, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's not going to work for me. And I don't know why I had that in my head, but I had in my head that it wasn't going to work. At one time, I had Googled and researched everything about vitamin D because it had gotten in my head that vitamin D was important to have. Um, I asked my neurologist, I said, have you ever checked my vitamin D level? And he's like, why would I do that? And I'm like, well, because I've been reading and there's like a connection between vitamin D and autoimmune. And he's like, if you want me to check it, I got to do your blood work anyway. I'll check it. It's no big deal. So he checked it. It was actually an 8, which is horrid.
oh,
Absolutely
good
horrid.
Lord.
I mean, it's a wonder I
Terrible.
got to breathe. So when he said it's an 8, he's like, well, you can probably just pick up some pills, or he's like, if you want, I could put you on prescription vitamin D, which was, this is comical right now, was 5,000 IUs a week. Now, I will not tell anybody what my dose is because I'm afraid of people just not doing what you have to do to keep this dose, as far as, cutting out calcium. And it's, there's more to it than just popping the pills. But
Right.
I want to say there's more to it, but it's very manageable. It's very easy. Once you learn it and once you know what you're doing, it's the easiest thing in the world. But yeah, 5,000
But you
IUs.
still need to work with your protocol doctor. You
Absolutely. You have
need,
to have a doctor. Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. Want
That's number
somebody
one.
trained.
Mhm,
Even though these neurologists has let us down,
mhm.
doctors are still trained in the human anatomy, and they, especially protocol doctors, know how to deal with things
Yes, yeah.
better
But
than
so I
us.
I took the prescription vitamin D that he told me to take, and I thought, okay, this is going to really help because I didn't know how much you could actually take, and it actually just made me feel yucky. It made my stomach hurt, and so I think I had in my head that I couldn't take more vitamin D than what this little pill was that they gave me, which actually what was happening was it wasn't the right dose of vitamin D, so my body didn't like it. And so that I think was in the back of my head. But so I had all this, and then I talked to you, and like I tell everybody, I had to prove John wrong because you just made me so mad because you're telling
Yeah.
me that this is what you have to do, and this is going to make you better. And I have all these neurologists. I have the Mayo Clinic. I spent 5 days up there saying you're a bad case. You're doing everything right. You're doing everything you possibly can. You're taking the drugs. You're taking the Ampuria to try to walk. You're taking every single thing you can do, and that's the best you can do. There's no miracle out there. And then I've got John Otwell saying, do this. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to tell you it didn't work. And so here we are, John, it works. um,
Yeah.
I have a message. I have to go back and check my messages because it's so many things. It's so little time. And on day 8, my legs started showing improvement. I could walk 2 minutes without falling down. That was huge for me. And he wanted me to walk 20 minutes a day. So I had to do it in increments. And I remember it, but to think back, I wouldn't have remembered that part of my healing. But I had to walk 2 minutes, then rest, then walk 2 more minutes, then rest. And then before, I was ready to go back to work, I was 5 miles a day. And there was no resting. It built up that quickly. And it's such a miracle that, there is something better out there. And I just want everybody to research this, just research it. And, my husband sent me a message. He's like, yes, I said the Amperia. I was on drugs to make my legs walk, and they still wouldn't walk. I was on the Amperia. I know people have heard, I'm probably saying that wrong, and that wasn't working. Nothing was working for these legs. They weren't going to walk.
I got to say something. You said a couple of months ago, you said, I feel bad. And I said, why? And you said something like, well, I've gotten everything back, but you haven't.
Yeah.
People don't realize how bad I was.
Yeah.
And how long I had the disease and was misdiagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a different set of circumstance.
Right.
Do I want to walk again? Of course I do. Do I want to get everything back? Of course I do.
Yeah.
But you don't look back and say, oh, I wish.
Yeah.
It's like the old saying, if the bear had stopped to take a dump in the woods, he would have caught the rabbit. I mean, you just got to keep, you got to let it go, and you can't worry about what's happened in the past. Will I walk again? Well, I have hopes, which when I got diagnosed, I was told a slow progression. And once you lose a function, you don't get it back. And Denise is living proof that that's a lie.
Yeah, absolutely wrong.
That you can get things back. Does everybody? No. Unfortunately, not everybody does it. I wish I could look everybody in the eye and say, you're going to get out of the wheelchair. You're going to get your memory back. Your spasticity is going to leave. I mean, I've talked to people who have gotten back a lot, but they still have a nasty symptom. Get spastic or they get tired. Excuse me. But when we look at how bad we could be, I mean, people, if this progresses and you get bad, you could end up in a hospital bed with your hands like this, not able to talk, with a feeding tube in your side, because if you swallowed, you choke. It's nasty. It's a nasty disease. Will it progress with you? Well, we don't know. But once it starts, it is nasty. Anyway, go ahead.
I remember you say that about not being able to swallow, and I had to go learn how to self-cath. Really great time. And I took my son with me, and of course, he wanted to go out to eat, and we went, and I was totally stressed out at that point. Totally stressed out. I was like, I've pretty much lost, every function that I cared about. And so we go to eat Mexican, and I'm like, I'm just going to sit down and eat. I couldn't swallow. I about choked, and I was like, well, here we are. This is, that was rough. That was December. It was December of 2017. And I remember that because the urologist had on a Christmas sweater that had like jingle bells on it. And I just wanted to kill him.
Yeah, you wanted to say, jingle this, idiot.
Yeah, I was
that's what you felt like doing,
That's the worst. But everything led me, if I hadn't gotten that bad, like you said, I wouldn't have tried this, because I talked to so many people it's not just all MS people, it's people with fibromyalgia, it's people with rheumatoid arthritis, and their big hang up is, I want ice cream. Okay, well, you were nowhere near as bad as me, because I'm sorry, I had ice cream before in my life. It's not, something that even mattered to me. I would have given up oxygen.
One of my close personal friends, and she's going to watch this, and she's going to know I'm talking about her, but I'm not going to say her name.
Yeah.
One of her questions to me before she started the protocol, and she had basically no symptoms.
Yeah.
As I was explaining the protocol to her, and she said, "So you can't sprinkle cheese on your salad?" And the thought that went through my head at that point is, she's not bad enough.
Yeah. You're not. Yeah.
When you start, when you're like, well, I can't have ice cream. You're
Yeah.
like, let me tell you something, people. Not having ice cream and not having cheese, I'll take all day long if I could have my mind back, if I could have my speech back. Uh, there's
Yeah.
so much I got back, and I don't eat ice cream and I don't eat cheese, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Life goes on. I mean, I still get a little bit upset when I have to make lasagna because love lasagna. But yeah, it's not a thing for me. It is so not a thing. I mean, I go to work and people see what I bring for lunch and they're like, it's just, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Everything that I've gotten back, it's unreal. I mean, I work in a refinery. Who does that?
You know what
It's
my wife said to me this morning? She said, "Oh, is she like you?" And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "She don't get stressed about anything." Because my wife gets upset at me because she'll tell me things and
yeah.
I'll go, "Oh, all right." And
Oh
she's
well.
like, "You're not going to get stressed, are you?" And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
MS." And I'm
Yeah.
like, after that, um, there's so much in life that you just like,
Yeah.
hey, the house just blew up.
Yeah.
We'll
Well.
go buy
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah.
You don't get attached to stuff. You just,
Yes.
you realize that you just roll with the punches, and you don't get stressed anymore. And it's really very freeing to be at that point, but it's a process.
It is. It is.
You don't wake up one day and say, well, I'm getting better. I know this works. And, so I'm not going to stress anymore because I've gotten better. No, it doesn't work that way. But eventually it will. You'll realize that, um, big deal. You beat
Yeah.
MS. When you beat MS, when you beat a disease for which the neurologist looks you straight in the face and says, there is no cure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget how my stomach just sunk. I'm
Yeah.
like, I've got one of those diseases and I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, and God
Yeah.
knows what else.
Yeah.
Um, God, it was just so, I mean, it's the worst news that you can get. Um, People say, whenever you get, they'll say, well, at least you don't have cancer. You're like, oh, yeah, thank you. I don't have cancer.
Right.
You moron. You think that makes me feel better? No, it doesn't. But thanks
Yeah.
for pointing that
Yeah.
out.
Thanks for
You know,
that. That's great.
yeah, yeah,
And to get better, it's not an overnight thing. And that's, a lot of people want that because you want to get better so bad. And I can tell you 100,000 times it's not going to happen overnight. The symptoms are going to come back, and that's part of the healing. And that's one thing people don't get. They're like, and you have to, number one, you have to get a doctor. And number two is so important. You have to journal. You have to, like I told you, I don't have
so
a journal.
important.
Yeah, I have a best friend, and I texted Vicky every single night. And I can go back and look at those messages, and I'm like, oh, this is the worst day of my life. But 2 days before that, I texted her about how great I felt. I
It's the
mean, because
best
you're
day of your
stuck in
life. I used to keep a journal, or I still keep a journal every day, and I would write down day 1, day 2, day 3, and
yeah,
on day like 9, I felt so good. And then you see that it went like 2 months before I felt good again. And
right.
I
But
did.
you had those good days, but it's so hard to remember those good days when you feel so bad, when you're like me, going blind again more repetitively than what I was. And I'm like, this isn't working because I haven't been able to see all day. But then I can look back, you know, and say, oh, 2 days ago, I had a really good day. I walked 5 miles. So
Right.
why, but I had to, she was my journal. And,
Yeah.
and all she ever said, and she'll watch this and she'll laugh, was this too shall pass. And that's kind of our joke. Whenever anything happens, that's, what we say to
Right.
each other. But,
Right.
and I had to have my neurologist, according to, I was on work disability, long-term disability. So I had to see a neurologist. That was part of the work plan, that I had to see a neurologist. So I stayed with my neurologist. And the great thing about him was he was going to prove to me that this protocol wasn't working, because every 3 months, he said, you're doing an MRI every 3 months. I'm going to show you you're getting worse. Even if you don't feel worse, I'm going to show you you're getting worse. And I was like, well, I have to. So yeah, so my
Do
first
you have
one,
copies of your MRIs?
I don't. I did at one time, and actually I got rid of them, but I could get them. St. Louis has them. But the first one was stable. And he's kind of like, well, I guess it's not. And I said, just a minute, buddy. My last one I had, when I was taking these great infusions, I had like 10 more lesions. So stable is a word I hadn't heard. So the next one, oh, look, some of these are improving. And I sent them to my protocol doctor, just to get a second look. And lo and behold, he's like, some of these are improving. A lot of these are improving. And he just didn't want to, I don't know if it was personal or what, but in the end, I was on the protocol. I still am on the protocol, but to get my PTH to the right level we wanted it took 9 months. And that sounds like a small amount of time. And to me, it really is. But when you're sick and you're getting all,
Right.
every symptom possible, it's a long time. I mean, think about a flu. The flu lasts for a week and you feel like death. I mean, I felt like death for 9 months off and on. I mean, there was great days, there was bad days, but you just didn't know what you were getting. And then in December, the day after Christmas, we did my last MRI. Everything's gone. I mean, I'm feeling great. He's like, how's the walking? I'm walking 5 miles a day. I have nothing. And he gets the old work release out and he says, you don't have MS anymore. And I was like, what? And the thing about it was, nobody expected. I mean, when I called work, they laughed. They're like, what? Because I hadn't told them I'm doing all this new stuff. I focused so much on just, getting better and walking, and just, I was driven, because there was so many people, neurologists, Mayo Clinic, that said, you're never going to get better. At the most, you could answer a phone, that would be your new job. But, who knows if you can get out of the chair. And it just made me mad. And for me to get something done, I want to be told I can't do it, because I'm going to show you I will.
Right.
And that's exactly what they needed to do, because, I went through so many things. The neurologist did not believe in this. He actually was gone one day, and he had my vitamin D levels ran. And so his assistant was in there, and she didn't know anything about this. And it's such a funny story. And I'm not usually mean to people, but I just had enough. And she called, and it was the doctor herself. And she's like, okay, I need you off of this. I need you to quit taking vitamin D right now. And I said, okay, why? And she said, your level's 700. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, you're toxic. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm toxic. Should I be touching my kid? And it just lit right through. I said, should I be even touching? And she hung up on me. She was so mad. But I tried to tell her that, the neurologist was aware of what I was doing, and my levels are going to be toxic. And she just wasn't.
I want to tell everybody, there is a story in the Bible about Joseph being sold into slavery and then becoming the second in charge in Egypt. And then his brothers come to have to buy grain from him, and he messes with them. He places a cup in their sacks, and then they find out that's his sack, and they're all like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And he's like, hey, you stole from me, so I'm going to throw you in prison, and I'm going to throw the youngest one in prison. You guys can go home. And he messed with them. It's tough when you go through this.
Yeah.
Not to mess with people sometimes, because they're like, like you said, your vitamin D was 600. Dr. DeMoss said the other day he had somebody, 6,000 or 4,000 or something like that.
I can't imagine what mine is now.
Vitamin D. I'm like, so we don't pay attention to the vitamin D. We pay attention to the calcium and
Just the calcium.
creatinine,
Yep.
and the PTH. But we found that vitamin D can be out of the norm, what they consider the norm, and it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt you.
Right.
What hurts you is, your calcium levels and things like that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I totally get that. And I'm sitting here as you're telling the story, I'm like, it's a good thing it was you and not me, because my cousin growing up used to mess with people all the time, and he was the king of that. And it's like I'm the same way. I'm like,
Mhm.
I love to mess with people, and
Yeah.
if that would have happened to me, I'd have been like, it's kind of like what you told me. Robin was going through some symptoms, and she said, "What should I do?" And unfortunate people, I'm ashamed to say this now, but I said to her, "Grab your husband and go to the emergency room right now." She wrote me back, "Really?" And I said, "No, not really. You're fine. You'll be fine." And she was fine in a couple of days. And she told me I was terrible. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm having fun with you. You're going to get better. And she is better.
And that's the
So,
thing. I mean, if you journal, you can really, really eliminate a lot of these questions. Like
right.
a lot of people are like, my calcium's too high. I think I'm drinking the water. Okay, well here's a real big secret. Get a cup that's 1 liter. Drink 2.5. I drink 3. I drink 3
You're,
liters a day. I've never been in the bad range. I have a 1 liter cup and I drink 3 of them a day. Simple.
excuse
I
me,
have a
your sound is a little bit messed up now.
oh, about
Get
my
your
husband. You're better?
get your technical guy to work on that. It sounds a little bit better.
I
Say
thought
it
he
to
was I
yeah.
thought he's sitting over here hogging my Wi-Fi, but he's not. I don't know. Am I better?
It's kind of going back and forth. Maybe that's a good point for us to jump off then, because we don't want people to listen to, you know, say
Technical.
something. And now
Yeah.
you're okay. Yeah. All right. You keep going now
Weird.
then.
I think it's that thing in my husband's brain. Probably.
Yeah.
He just sat down with me.
Probably a guy thing. Probably a guy
Yeah,
thing.
he's probably messing
Or
it up.
it might be because he's a Cowboy fan. That might be messing
It
it
could
up.
be. It could be it. It could be it.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I think the journaling is so important going forward. Things that you have to do. You have to get a doctor. You
Yes.
have to drink the water. You have to do the exercises, eliminate calcium. And by gosh, just don't stress about this. And,
What I
it's
tell
so
people is
stressful.
that they can call me anytime. Right now,
Yeah.
we're small enough, and you
Yep.
can call somebody, go on the page.
Yep.
Maybe somebody I saw yesterday, somebody was starting the protocol, and he started it the same week as my buddy. So I tagged my buddy, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Bridget Sargent one time was talking about how her and Tyrone talked to each other, while she
Yeah.
was going. You need on them tough days, people. I know. You
Yep.
need somebody to lean
Yeah.
on. You need
Yeah.
somebody
And
to cry to. And then once you're through it, you're like,
yeah.
I mean, you're like, you know,
Yeah.
but when you go through it, you're like, oh, and but then once you're through it, it seems like no big deal.
There's
But
things that you've learned about yourself too. Like I had some really bad leg days that I didn't like later on. Like I was almost there and I thought, what am I doing different? Well, I don't know why, but tight socks will kill my legs to this day. Don't wear tight clothes. Don't wear tight socks. That's, something I learned. In the beginning, when I started, first started, I had such bad back pain, lower back pain. And I thought, okay, it's kidney. I've got hypercalcemia. Oh my gosh. It's only, day 14. I've got hypercalcemia. What did I eat? I wigged out like everybody does. I wasn't even close on my calcium. I think it's just the body adjusting. But one thing I used for me, I slapped lavender oil on it. Lavender was my best friend. My legs hurt. I slapped lavender on them. I mean, it just, you'll find out what works for you. There's things out there that aren't a pill,
Right.
that aren't drugs. You
Right.
know, I drink
I use
2 years.
peppermint oil on my neck when I get a
Yeah.
headache, and it works
Yep.
wonderfully.
Yes,
I
I have
love
a
the
roller
stuff.
ball that I use because I
Yes.
had a lot of headaches in the beginning, and I haven't had a headache for gosh, years. But I had a roller ball that had like peppermint and lavender, and I just roll it on. And shoot, I forgot all
It
about that. You said that,
it
but
works.
it does absolutely works.
Yeah.
For me, 3 liters of water. I'm not counting the coffee water. I'm not counting if I have soup. It's 3 liters of water a day. It took me a month to where I could do that. It really did because I was really bad off. I couldn't
You
tell
know,
when I.
looking back, sorry to interrupt you, but I started out with a Starbucks cup and a straw. I tried that for a while.
Yep.
Then I got rid of that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I've tried flavors. I used to squeeze the lemon in my water. I used
Yep.
to squeeze orange. Uh, then there's these drops you can get on Amazon with stevia because I'm a
Yep.
natural person now.
Yep.
But there's a lot of stuff out there that you can flavor your water. But take
Yes.
my word for it. Eventually, that stuff kind of goes aside, and you're just like, yeah, I got to
Yeah.
drink.
Drink the water. Yeah. In the beginning, I think I told you that I would take some hot sauce because I couldn't drink the water. I just couldn't make myself do it. So I'd just take hot sauce and take a teaspoonful of that. Well, that'll get you some water down real quick.
Eat some
I
hot
mean,
wings.
I tried anything.
I still do that. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, what the heck did I eat? And I'm like, I can't do that because I'll have to
Yeah.
pee in a couple hours. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm dying of thirst over here.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
because
And
of
don't,
these stupid
yeah, don't
hot
drink the
wings.
water ice cold. A lot of people like
No,
me, I love ice cold water, but it does not go down as good as,
room
room
temperature goes
temperature
down
water is
better.
the way to go.
Yeah,
And it's just easier to drink more. Make it easy on yourself. Trying to think of
yeah,
any little secrets because I feel like, all of us that have done this have these little things that, might somebody can be like,
absolutely,
hey, yeah.
absolutely.
Uh,
There's little thing. You know what, people? Whether it's an aid to help you walk,
yep.
whether it's a cushion to put on your bed to help you sleep, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's making your room totally dark, whatever it is, there are aids and there are little things that will make your life easier.
Yes,
Don't be
absolutely.
stubborn and
Right.
just,
And
just
don't give up,
do 'em.
We
Yeah,
see a lot of
just
people
do them.
give up. I see a lot of people complain their hair falls out. My hair totally fell out. I
Yeah,
didn't buy anything. I didn't go on biotin. I didn't feel that was, I thought, who cares if I
right,
have hair? I'm not going anywhere anyway. And lo
right.
and behold, at the end of this, I end up with curly hair.
Yeah,
So I don't know. My hair's always been stick straight. This is
yeah.
not a perm. This is vitamin D.
Wow, wow,
Um, I ended up with curly hair.
wow.
It's it wasn't an issue for me. I know people complain about sleep. Sleep was huge to me. I work rotating shifts. I work 1 week of days, 1 week of nights. I remember going in on nights 1 week, and my coworker, if he watches this, he'll tell you the truth. I slept 15 minutes, and there I was back at work for 12 more hours. I could not sleep. I just had so much energy. Did I adjust anything? No. It worked itself out. It really
Right,
did.
right.
Um, it's just the body's going through so much. You can't have this awful, awful disease, expect to take a whole bunch of vitamins, and boom, you're going to wake up all better. It's going to have to reverse itself. You're going to
Well,
have these
and this
things.
is what I tell people: two things. One, we're in the instant gratification nation world uh, where we stand in front of a microwave. Now, don't tell me you've never done this, not you, Denise, but people in general.
I
Stand
have.
in front of a microwave and go, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up,
Mhm.
hurry up, hurry up. Don't tell me you haven't done that. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, you didn't get sick overnight.
No.
Will not get well overnight. It's going to take time. And
Yeah.
it's going to take at least the protocol set up for 2 years. Now, some people, I just talked to a lady the other day, 5 months. I mean,
Yeah.
5 months and she's doing better.
That's great. That's great. That's
That
really
is
good.
great. But we need to realize that the protocol is 2 years. For me, it was
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, my disease stopped at 2.5 years. At
Yeah.
3 years, I still saw improvements.
Yeah.
So, when you say that somebody has MS, they're like, No big deal. If I get better, I don't care how long it takes. I just want to
Yeah.
feel better. Then
Right.
they get
Absolutely.
6 months into it, they start reading these great testimonials from people, and they're like, "Well, I don't feel any different. I want that to happen for me. What am I doing wrong?" The protocol is 2 years, people. Two
Yeah.
years. I
And
know
stressing
people.
about it is not going to help anybody. It's not. It's not going to help you to stress about it and
Go
compare
talk to
yourself to somebody.
Denise's friend and just know that this too shall pass.
That's right. Everybody needs a Vicky in
Grab
their
a
life.
Cheetos, grab some Cheetos and sit in
Yep.
front of the TV and just
Yes.
relax. You know.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing in the world to do. And you just got to find a way to do it. I mean, whether it's read the testimonials over and over and over, or just, try to find some positivity. And it's hard to do, especially on those bad days. But I tell you what, on those bad days, my doctor did me the best favor ever. He said, get up, get moving. And on my worst days, if I walked, it helped me. I mean, I told you before, circulation with, blood circulation and MS, just there's such a connection between them. So if you're feeling bad, you're on the protocol today, get up, pick up some weights, do something to be active. And, tell me it doesn't help. I mean, it's going to help you anyway.
If
Any
you're
kind of
doing
exercise
something
helps
like
you
this
anyway.
morning, I did curls. I've always done curls ever since
Uh-huh.
I've started this. Now, what's funny is I used to be a fitness instructor, and we would say curls are for the girls because your bicep muscles really don't do that much. They
Right.
just look nice. But I do curls now, and
Yeah.
I do tricep. I work my upper body, and I feel better whenever I do it. I mean, you
Yeah.
feel like you're
Get those
doing
endorphins going.
moving forward,
Yeah. And we
So,
all need to feel better mentally anyway.
yeah,
I can't even go on and on about vitamin D and depression and all the young people today
yeah,
that need this vitamin D. You're not getting vitamin D like we used to. We're not
no,
getting it from the foods that are
no.
grown
And
different now.
what have we told people? Don't go out in the sun, which is one of our best sources of natural vitamin D.
Right. Yeah.
We
Sun's
tell them
bad.
don't go in the sun. You're going to get cancer. And here, slather on this chemical so
Right.
that you don't get skin cancer. I
Yeah.
went to my neurologist at about 6 months, and I had the most golden tan you ever saw in your life. I would go
Yeah.
out in the sun for 20 minutes, only
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes. I didn't get skin cancer, and I had the best tan of my life. I
Yeah.
went to him, and my skin was so brown. He wanted to send me to the endocrinologist to have him test my liver because he thought I was getting jaundice. And I
Yeah.
said, no, I said, I just have the best tan of my life.
Yeah.
And I did. I felt so good. The first
Mm-hmm.
time my neurologist called me, he said, "Well, we did an MRI. This is after about 5 months. We did an MRI, and there are no new lesions." And I
Mm-hmm.
started laughing hysterically, and I said, "That's just what we want to see." And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, now hold on. I still got some red flags here." And I wanted to say, "Oh, you mean those old lesions that will either shrink, not increase in size, or maybe even go away?" That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't. But
Yeah.
I feel like going to him now, talking about, we're not supposed to be vindictive or play with people, but I want to go to him and wave a red flag in front of his face and say, "Here's your red flag. You know what you can do with it." But that's probably not a nice thing to do.
I don't think anger's such a bad thing because anger drives people. I mean, it really drove me. I was very angry with my healing. If I hadn't had those people that, stood in my way and, you know, I don't think I'd be where I am today. I have to have a little bit of, let me show you something.
Right.
So I
Well,
just
I think the greatest thing with every person within the sound of our voice can hear and should believe is that try it.
yes,
Just try
absolutely.
it.
Just try
Just
it.
try it. Just prove us wrong. That's all
Yeah.
we're asking you.
And that's what I'm
You
still
know?
trying to do to John. I'm still trying to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
I failed. But yeah, just get a doctor. You can go on the Cornbread Protocol North America page. List of doctors is right there.
Yes.
I mean, just research this, learn everything you can, watch the testimonials.
we're going to
I
have
mean,
more doctors come on board now. I hope in Germany and
I wish we could get some
Portugal,
more North
Spain,
American ones. I
Ukraine,
so,
and
yeah,
we
it's so
want more in
needy.
the North American group. We want more doctors in North America. We understand why there isn't because of
Yeah,
litigation and
yeah.
because of legalities. They
Hmm.
right now can't do this. They feel because scientifically it's not proven. You can share a million testimonies with these doctors.
Yeah.
Literally, there are there are thousands of people that have gotten better, and we
Hmm.
would gladly testify to that.
Yeah.
But until they see something scientifically, it's
But
not
my neurologist said it perfectly. He said the truest thing ever when I said, "Hey, you could learn this protocol. You could, help all these people." He said, "Prescribing drugs is what pays the bills." And I mean, I wanted to punch him so bad, but that's basically the position that they put these doctors in. Prescribing
no
drugs is what pays the bills. If he would have learned this and it would have, told everybody to do it, he's not going to get the big bucks, that he gets now.
right.
And
I often say it's not profitable to get well.
no,
Because
it's
you're
not.
not going to take real. But don't get me wrong, I'm not against doctors and I'm not against
No,
pharmaceutical. They
right.
have their place.
They do.
I'm just saying, in my life and in my situation, Denise's, this protocol works and it doesn't use drugs to do it.
Right.
You
Right.
can get better. That's the thing. Uh,
Right.
we want to instill in people.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, well, have we covered everything? We
I think
probably ought to do something again. I would especially appreciate anybody's input um, about how often, what they want us to cover, something like that. We can set something up where I'm talking with Dr. Tomas every week, and that kind of gives us the medical side and the more technical side. You
right.
and me,
Yeah.
it's going to be more the blue collar side and
Right.
our own experiences. So maybe we could set something up where, we can answer a few questions or something. I don't know. Eventually, I'm hopeful that we'll do a podcast and people can follow us that way. But this is all starting for us, but it's
Right.
very exciting to see the protocol going in other parts of the world. And
Yeah.
I have a
Mhm.
neurologist interested now, and that's going to be big. It's going to be
Yeah.
huge.
Anything to
So,
get the word out there. And
absolutely.
share this. Anybody that watches this, is share this with anybody, any autoimmune disease. It's not just MS.
Anybody, anyone,
I had
we're all
fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with that too. Um, I mean, I'm totally living a symptom-free life. I just wish that for everybody. And
right. And she's going to name one of her grandchildren after me, if you're wondering. I
I
often
have
kid
some
her.
grandkids. That'd be great.
I often kid her, and she's like, "Well, I don't really have much input in that." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
I'm only
So,
24, so it's a
so
long time
what?
before you have
That's
grandkids.
where the Bible said, or I heard a sermon once time by a pastor in California, and he said an old Chinese proverb, and I always try to remember this: the praise of men is like perfume. You can smell it, but don't drink it.
Yeah.
And I often try to remember that. I kid and I joke, and people give me accolades, and people are always saying good things to me, and I'll go, I'll smell it, but don't let your head get big, and don't, you know,
Yeah.
it. You just smell it and you go on. It's just like perfume. You smell it and you go on. That's the way that all of this is. I don't do this for any other reason than to alleviate people's suffering. And
Right.
that's what we're here. We've suffered. We know what it's
Oh,
like.
yeah. I don't
And
want anybody to
so,
go through what I went through.
no, I
It's
don't either. I do not either. And if I can help one person, great. But if I can help millions, even greater. I just don't want anybody. I've often said that I don't want a father laying in bed and his daughter's going to get married and he can't even go to the wedding, because
yeah.
that was me,
Yeah.
and that was going to be me. And so I don't want any father laying on his bed thinking, this is life for me. This is it, and that's the way MS is. Anyway, thanks, Denise, a lot.
Thank
Really,
you.
really enjoyed it. And neither one of us cried.
Right. We're
So
growing up. Look at us.
Yeah. But I will say this, when I got MS, I cry all the time. I mean, my wife would come in the room and there'd be a commercial and I'd be going,
Yeah.
and she'd be like, why are you crying? And I'm like, you should see this little boy on TV. And I couldn't help it. And I'm dealing with somebody with MS now that cries all the time.
Yeah.
And she asked me if it would go away. And I said it might.
Right.
We don't know. That's the thing with this whole protocol. We don't know how much you'll get back or how good you'll get. But anyway, we'll cover all that. Maybe in our next talk, maybe we can talk about that, talk about some symptoms, talk about things we've done to make life easier. Who knows what we'll talk about. We'll see what input you people have to us, give us ideas, and we'll gladly talk about them on our next talk. Okay?
Works for me.
All right. Well, thanks, Denise. We'll see you next week, I guess.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, John.
All right.
Bye,
Bye-bye.